There we go. All right, all right. Today I wanted to talk about viruses, vaccines. And why do I want to talk about those things of all things? Well, one, I just recovered from my fourth round of COVID, and it wasn't as bad as my first, but it was a lot closer to my first than the second and third time I got it. Um, and as always happens when you mention COVID, you have people bring up the vaccines, of course. It's just kind of goes hand in hand nowadays, and there's far too much politics involved in the discussion. One thing that politics should just never be involved in, and we agree with this for the most part, I believe, when it comes to like health insurance, is medicine. Politics just has no place having anything to do in any kind of medical discussion. The only time politics should ever be discussing it is if it's talking about like healthcare, like supplementation for like the elderly, people who may be pregnant, poor families, things of that nature. In that case, do your political discussions at will, but only insofar as the funding portion of it, not in the actual science portion of it. Um, it's really, really important to keep those two things really, really separate because politics, by definition, is just debating like your perspectives on something, your personal feelings about something. And that has no place in any kind of realm of science, be it biology, be it medical, be it whatever the case, be it astrophysics, be it talking about oceanography. Politics has nothing to do with facts. It really doesn't. It should. There should be a lot more facts-based politics, but there just isn't, unfortunately. So, I am feeling a lot better than I have been. You may be able to tell the difference from my voice from yesterday to today. I still have some scratchiness going on. I'm still very, very tired physically, and I'm still having a little bit of breathing issue. But I'm decidedly much better than I have been. A couple days just laying in the bed for the most part really helped. My wife took really good care of me, getting me soups and making sure I was trying to stay hydrated and whatnot. The COVID variant that is going around right now, for anybody who does not know, is the COVID XEC variant. And I believe it's part of the Omicron family. If you do have the COVID Omicron vaccine, it should help prevent you from getting this one, or at least reduce the veracity of it. If you only have some of the first COVID shots and you do not have a vaccine for the Omicron, I would say go ahead and get it, but I'm not, of course, a doctor. I'm only going to be speaking from my knowledge of medical science and biology that I know. I, of course, am somebody who's pro-medicine, pro-vaccine. Am I pro-big pharma? Oh, my God. That was a question I was asked at one of my county board meetings. If I supported big pharma. And, of course, I don't support big pharma as far as the capitalist industrial complex that they are. I do not. Do I think Big Pharma is completely honest with us with a lot of stuff? No, because of the capitalist aspect of it. That's what corrupts most big businesses, is the fact that the boards are all about making as much money as possible and cutting all losses as much as possible. They don't want to offer medicine just to do a cure. They want to offer medicine as a form of temporary treatment for something, and hopefully, people get sick again. And not all of them are that way. Don't get me wrong. There are definitely some altruistic natures within medicine, within the pharmaceutical world. It does exist. I'm not going to pretend for a moment it doesn't. Anybody who is just going to say that there is just nobody wants to cure anything, that's false. That is false. Do I think the major companies are? I don't think so, unfortunately. But that's just my opinion again. However, I do think vaccines work. I do think that they do prevent you from getting the illness. As far as like, and I'm going to explain how vaccines kind of operate here in just a moment. but I do think that they will help prevent you from getting the illness or getting a very serious case of the illness. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions about vaccines is that they are 100% guaranteed to prevent you from ever getting the virus. No, unfortunately, they cannot do a 100% guarantee that if you have a vaccine, you just won't get whatever virus or disease. It'd be great if it worked that way. It would be absolutely fantastic if it worked that way every single time. But unfortunately, human biology reacts differently to everything. Every single individual has their own individual biology, their own individual chemistry, their own individual cell makeup. It all affects how everything that you eat, or is ingested into you or interacts with your biology in any such way, like any other diseases might, any viruses, any bacteria that may infect you, or affect you as well. It all changes how all of that works. Just because you have a vaccine or take a vitamin or something doesn't mean you're going to get the same exact results that somebody else got. And there's always an inherent risk to anything that you take into your body. And that's not just vaccines, that's vitamins, actually. There is an inherent risk to some vitamin supplements. You actually see that on some of these supplements telling you that there's a certain risk, because you can overdose on an amount of certain supplements. Things like potassium, you can get potassium poisoning. That you can get too much of anything is bad for you, and your individual biology is going to impact that. It could be part of your weight, how fast your body processes things. So your metabolic rate, as it were, your muscle density, everything is going to affect how I'm getting so caught on the viruses. Everything's infecting now. It's infecting the way I think. But everything is going to affect how everything that you take in or is taken into your system one way or another impacts it, right? So I don't want people to think that there's one cure all. One of the things that I had all the time when I was working out constantly, and I was like 210, I was a big cat. Right now I'm like 180 and nowhere near the same muscle mass. I was a big guy back in the day. But everybody would ask me what supplements do you take? What supplements do you take? And I didn't take supplements. I took literally nothing as far as a supplement. I drank Soapy Power, which boasted like the tiniest little bit of creatine. And I guess that would have been the supplement, but mostly I drank it because it tasted like fruit punch, and I really enjoyed it. I also drank Sundrop. I don't think that had anything to do with it. Lots of Mountain Dew. I ate an entire thing of Oreo cookies while playing video games for like 2 hours. But the reason that I was able to achieve the physical fitness that I had was, one, I was in the Marine Corps, so I was doing Marine Corps PT every day. And then in addition to that, I was going to the gym every evening. So I had a regiment that I was doing in addition to the Marine Corps fitness training. And I was spending about an hour every night in the gym with 2 other guys. And we had specific routines that we were doing, like pyramid workouts on the bench press, all kinds of stuff that we were isolating. And I was also doing heavy bag workouts. So, yeah, I mean, of course I got really, really physically fit because I ate a huge amount of food. I paid attention to whatever I was craving. If I was craving green beans, I ate green beans. If I was craving something, and I would see it and I would just crave it, broccoli, whatever, and I would just eat it because my body wanted it. And that's how I kind of operated. When you're working out that often, you are going to be just ravenous. You should be. And I gave my body as much nutrients as I could. And that doesn't mean I cut out all the good stuff that I enjoyed, or cake and ice cream and cookies and junk food. I ate junk food too. I just ate a lot of good stuff as well. You can't just eat just junk food and do that. It's going to be really hard on your muscles. But I wasn't following any specific regimen or anything like that. But what worked for me wasn't going to work for somebody else. And I made that abundantly clear any single time I had that conversation. Everybody's physiology is different. So what works for one person does not work necessarily for another person. Take that, everything that somebody tells you that they're doing for a diet routine or a weight training routine, always take it with a grain of salt. And I don't mean, take some salt, but take that and understand that it may or may not work for you. You may have to make adjustments to how it's working for you. If you're noticing differences, what could affect those differences, and think about that. Now, when it comes to medicine, that all has the same play, and that's why your doctors will prescribe. A lot of the times, they'll prescribe a smaller dose of a medication, knowing that your body mass might impact that, and they may have to raise it later. But they would rather err on the side of caution and start you off on something smaller, not knowing how your body's going to initially react to that dose, and go, "Hey, what's up, Matt?" But yeah, it's always safer to start somebody on a smaller dose of something and then work their way up to a higher dose if necessary to get the desired effect, right? So that's what your doctors are doing out there. And so if you don't feel that a medication is working to the end that you're hoping, then always talk to your doctor about that. Always let them know. If there's side effects that you're experiencing, always let your doctors know about that. Have those conversations. Your doctors want those conversations, okay? Before we get into, too much else, have those conversations with your doctor, and always know, I'm feeling a lot better than I was the other day. I was hurting the other day. It was pretty bad. I've had some crazy headaches. Yesterday, I could barely speak at all. I was talking. I can't even mimic the way I was talking. It was rough. But my voice feels a lot better today. I still have some congestion in my lungs, a little bit of scratchiness in the throat. My head's still a little bit throbby, but I'm operating. I'm dealing with a lot of stuff in my hometown right now with as a county board supervisor, but I'm not going to go into that on here. I want this to be a separate issue. And so this is actually, my sickness is actually what I was talking about, because somebody brought up, they thought that only the people who were vaccinated initially with COVID, had the COVID vaccines, were still getting infected with COVID. And I was like, what on God's earth are you talking about? And they're like, oh yeah, all the people that I know that had vaccines, they're the ones who are getting COVID again. Well, here's a couple things that I want to address with this. Number one, let's go with the easy one, the flu vaccine, right? Everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of people were for a long time getting that every single year. And some people one day said, well, why do you have to get it every single year? Because they genuinely didn't know. And that's fair. It's more than fair to not understand a lot about vaccines and viruses. It's a complicated bunch of stuff, and I don't know that they're really talking about it effectively in schools right now. I won't make that assumption, but it is fair, I guess. So the reason that you get a new one every year is because as the flu infects more and more people all of the time, as it always does, it's going to mutate. Viruses, the more they infect people, the more they can propagate, the more that they have a potential for interacting with your cells, and that causes a mutation in them. Now, not every time it infects somebody is it going to mutate. No. But every time it infects somebody, it has the potential to mutate. And that could be because you have a current other virus infection going on, and it interacts with that virus cell. It could be two variants of the same virus, and now their DNA combines, and that's how we got the new Omicron viruses, if I'm not mistaken, the XEC COVID variant. There's all kinds of ways that a infection can mutate. There's all kinds of things that mutation can incur. For instance, a virus may not be able to survive very long airborne, right? And in that case, it's not considered an airborne virus because it's going to be like 30 seconds outside your body, and it's not going to be effective anymore. The cell's just going to die. However, it could mutate and now survive for up to like 3 hours in the air. At that point, we consider that an airborne virus because anybody who interacts with that air supply could still interact with that virus cell that's alive at this point, and that could infect them by inhaling it. So that's what an airborne virus essentially is. It's something that can last for a longer period of time and then still infect somebody when they inhale it later on. So, sorry, I'm going to have to get my inhaler out here. I have it right here just in case. But, yeah, I feel you. Are my people at home already? My kid's at the doctor today. Yeah, she had COVID. They're just getting her cough checked out. I think she's just really phlegmy, but I'm not her doctor either. So, but yeah, so viruses can mutate. It can cause all sorts of different things. It can change the way it affects your system. It can change spike proteins. It can change how much damage it does to your lungs, where in your body it has impacts, all sorts of things. So virus mutations are exceedingly dangerous, and it's one of the main reasons why reducing how much a virus can infect people is really, really important. And any mutation that happens has a chance to make it so that any current vaccines no longer will work on the mutations. Think of it as one of those little games where you have to put a circle in a circle, right? Those little play school kind of games that you give kids. So you've got the circle that you put in the circle. You've got a triangle you put in the triangle. You've got the square you put in the square. It's all pretty, makes sense, right? Well, that's kind of how vaccines work, is they tell your body that this is going to be a circle. If you see this circle, put it into the circle thing. And your body's like, all right, anytime I see a circle, I'm going to put it in that circle thing. We're going to take care of this. No problem. This is a very, very simple way of explaining this. It's obviously more complicated, but it's looking for a very specific thing. If it was looking at a mugshot and it said, kick this guy out, and if he looks exactly like this, and goes, okay, I will kick this guy out of the bar if he looks exactly like this. The guy comes in, but he has different color hair. He's got glasses now instead of no glasses, and he wears a mustache. For a lot of vaccines, that's enough for them to go, all right, well, cool. You don't look exactly like this. We're going to let you in. We're not going to mess with you. Until that guy starts, causing trouble and, half the bar's burning down. And then we go, oh, crap. We should have kicked that guy out, but we didn't know. Now we know. We're going to add that guy to our list as long as he looks like this. The difference is virus can't go and willingly choose to look different. It has to have that mutation potential, and that means it has to be infecting people. So one of the reasons you'll hear people from the CDC and your doctors and so many other people say that vaccines are so much more important is because when you get vaccinated, you're not getting that giving a virus an opportunity to mutate. It's not going to mutate off of a vaccine, if that makes sense. So if you have a virus in you and it's not, I'm gonna adjust this here. If you have the virus in you and it's not given the opportunity to change that way, then, or rather, if you have the vaccine in you, you're not giving the virus an opportunity to mutate from you. That's reducing its chance to propagate in the future. Now, you can still get herd immunity built up in any kind of society, culture, group of people, whatever dynamic you want to apply to it. You can still get herd immunity by using vaccines. I heard that thrown about so often by people misunderstanding herd immunity. They thought you could only get herd immunity by everybody getting sick and then naturally fighting off the infections. Well, yeah, that's one way you can get it, but that's not how you want to go and do that, honestly. Because like I said, the more a virus infects people, the more it can mutate. Another fun mutation is it could suddenly start being able to infect swine, birds, monkeys, dogs, whatever. It could affect wildlife. And still be something, because it's going to come from us if it can do that and mutate to that degree, which means that there's a really good chance that it could still have infect humans. So now it's got all these wildlife that it can infect, but it can infect humans as well. So that's not something that's not good. That's not happy. So that's definitely a mutation that you don't want. You don't see it often, but it is something that has potential. So it's something to keep in mind. Getting herd immunity through allowing more and more people to be infected naturally, and develop their own antibodies to it that way. While it's not an option, but it's a shit option. And that people doing it this way, believing that that's going to make their body stronger, no, it doesn't. While you do learn to fight off that infection, you're giving the virus the opportunity to continue mutating, and then you're going to get infected with the mutated versions the next time because your body doesn't have antibodies to the new mutations. It has antibodies to the old versions, which is why people get sick again and again and again with the flu, and again and again and again with COVID and countless other viruses. So it's really, really important to keep that in mind. One of the videos that I wanted to show you here is this little video from Outbreak. I don't know if that made it bigger for you guys or not, because it closes that off for me. But it's a really short video, but you can watch how it starts in areas, and it's a very, very quick outbreak map. All right. You can look up outbreak spread maps and see how they go. Outbreak heat maps. There's a whole bunch of different ways you can try to look it up. It's not super easy to find if you don't know what you're looking for. This one does take a little bit more effort to find. There's actually, ironically enough, one of the great maps to look is kind of a zombie outbreak map. It has a very similar kind of look to it. So if you ever watched the zombie movie, I hate going here, but it is fairly similar. So it's not a terrible. This is actually because they always say the zombie outbreaks are a virus. So the maps that they use in those zombie movies are actually based on epidemic outbreak maps, worst case scenarios, and so it is a good analog for this. Obviously, they're using one that spreads at a faster rate. For the most part, than a normal one will. But as we saw with COVID, outbreaks can be very, very quick and very, very impactful. It is not something that just one and done. So it's crazy how fast viruses can really spread and how long they can stick around. I think a lot of us thought that COVID was going to be kind of a one and done sort of thing, where as we all got built up our antibodies based on getting the shots and everything else, that it would slowly go away. You still get people who would slowly get it over time who hadn't been protected from it in one way or another, and they would eventually get it, and it's going to deal with it, right? But unfortunately, viruses do mutate, and the number of people who decided that, got your Cokes? I keep forgetting down south, everybody calls soda Cokes. Even if it's not a Coca-Cola, it's a Coke. One of the funniest things I ever learned about the South. I'm like, wait, that's not a Coke. That's a Mountain Dew. No, it's a Coke. I'm like, that's not a goddamn Coke. That's a Dew. But of course, we call them Pops, and I can only imagine that came through because people, I don't know, couldn't handle their bottles right or something, and it just pops off. I have no idea. But anyway, oh, it's an actual Coke. Well, there you go. You're stepping into the right way. On the other hand, I'm drinking Pepsi. But my wife's a Pepsi vendor, and she's like really religious about like having to buy Pepsi. I'm like, but I like Coke better. She's like, you traitor. Well, my grandma drank Coke, and I actually do like the flavor better. And it doesn't. I like Pepsi, but it goes flat in like 3 seconds after you open it. So unless you drink it from the bottle, keep it capped. Even then, it's going to go flat before you're probably done with it. But it tastes like the plastic, and I hate that. Yeah, I don't know why. Actually, if I switch to one of my other scenes on here, like everything's correct and how. I don't know why Firefox is on top on this scene. But yeah, if I use that one, then it's it's right. I have absolutely no idea why on this scene it's inverted. It was that way from the moment I opened it. It has never allowed me to change it, and I can't find a single setting in the webcam settings that allows me to do the horizontal flip. Drives me bananas. I'm probably just going to go and edit the other scene one of these days and just do it that way. But I want to make sure I remember to edit my browser window. Actually, I could do that right. Wouldn't take me but a minute. Let me go to, yeah, this one. We're going to add that. I'm so dumb. I could have just done that in the first place. There. Not perfect, but it's better. Now everything that will be on my screen will be oriented the right way. So, anyway, one of the things I had to talk about was correlation is not causation. All right, and I brought this up in a couple other real recent things, but it never hurts to repeat something that's really, really important when you're talking about statistics and science. And so what that means is two things that have to do with one another that correlate does not mean one causes the other, right? Two things that you may find in data sets that are relative may not mean something, right? One of the things that I use as an example is when you were talking about gathering data. If you wanted to capture all of the data on, like, say, 50 people with COVID, and they all recover, so you're going to look back at everything that they all did during this time, and you're going to try to figure out why they were able to recover from COVID. What helped them to recover from COVID? And so you're looking for similarities, things that they all had in common that would maybe contribute to them getting better. And they all chewed, like the majority of them chewed cinnamon gum of the same brand. Now, that doesn't mean that cinnamon gum somehow is preventing COVID or helping them get over COVID. But people would say, well, but look, all of them did it and they all got better. Well, yeah, that's correlation, not causation. You could find that, the people who chewed gum also, were, left-handed. Does that mean that people who are left-handed chew that gum, or that chewing that gum makes you left-handed? Obviously not. So you have to be able to, when you're looking at statistics and data, you have to, this is why analysts are really, really important, and why doing your own research can be very, very, very sketchy. Because people who don't know what means what can look at a whole bunch of data and they can make weird relationships happen that have nothing to do with anything. That's why when you're like getting information from people online, it's really important to go, these guys don't know what they're talking about necessarily. Let me look into it. Let me go find other people that are experts in these fields that can back this up, that can say the same information is true. And I get this all the time with all sorts of things. And even things that I'm like, oh, is this true? I would like this to be true. So I will go and I'll look up things, and I'll find out that this isn't true. I'll go, find, I can't find a single other expert in this field, or any kind of site that's even related to that field that also has information that supports whatever this article was saying. So as much as I might want something to be true, I will try to verify it, because if it sounds too good to be true, it probably isn't. No matter how good it makes you feel. Correct. We actually have this conversation all the time. There's because my kids were heavily into K-pop, wanted to go to Korea all the time, and we were like, well, if you go there, most of the food is really spicy, and they would always come back with, yeah, but not all Korean people like spicy food, Dad. And I'm like, that is fair. That is fair. There are not spicy foods over there, and there's also places that you don't have to eat spicy. So that is fair. They got me on that one. But yeah, that's a perfect example. Anytime you're stereotyping like that, bringing in these relationships that are not guaranteed to be intrinsic, they're not inherent to something. One of the things that I recently heard was that the number of cases of COVID were down. Somebody was trying to say that the number of COVID cases were down. And I'm like, well, that doesn't necessarily mean the COVID infections are down. And they were like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, okay. Now, I just got COVID right now, for example. I didn't let my doctors know. I haven't reported that I had COVID. I should. I keep forgetting to do so. But that doesn't mean that my case didn't happen. But for all intents and purposes, it may as well just be another person who had a cough, never checked themselves to see if they had COVID, never went to the doctor to test for COVID, and therefore there's no registration of that case ever being COVID. And a lot of people who don't want to believe in COVID or are anti-vax, a lot of them just don't want to admit that it could be COVID. So they'll be like, well, it's just the cold, or it's just the flu, or it's just strep throat, or they'll name anything else without it even being checked. Correct. That people intentionally didn't tell. People actually went around and intentionally were spreading it, believe it or not. There were people who would come into retail stores. They came into our local store knowing that they were sick with COVID, and they were coughing on and wiping their hands on everything. Absolutely disgusting. Nuts. Yes, there are people that had zero symptoms and had COVID. That's absolutely possible. It's called being asymptomatic. For anybody who doesn't know that term, that just means that you can have an infection. It's an active infection, but for whatever reason, it doesn't have any adverse effects on your body. Your body just is like, all right, cool, whatever, homie, just don't break the china. And the virus in your body, for whatever reason, is like, all right, homie, cool. And Typhoid Mary would be a good classic example of that. Somebody who can have the disease, which is absolutely rampant and killing other people, but for that host, it is not affecting them adversely whatsoever. It can live on in that person for years, and that person can just keep infecting people. People don't know that that's a real thing, that it does absolutely happen, or don't understand that it can be with any disease, not just typhoid. Any virus, any kind of thing that can absolutely do that. Your body can incubate it, and for whatever reason, it doesn't affect you, but it will absolutely continue to infect other people and wreak havoc. And that's a super dangerous thing. Think Outbreak Monkey. If you've seen the movie Outbreak, the little monkey, it wasn't killing the monkey, but it absolutely was infecting all of the people and just devastating the people. So, like a human version of the Outbreak Monkey. I actually called people Outbreak Monkeys. Oh man, but yeah, like statistics are influenced that way by people who just don't report it. I mean, they can only go by so many things. There's only so many ways they can get that information without people volunteering that information. So this was an early on, of course, picture that I'm using in the background here for the COVID infections. That was in 2020, in March 2020. Obviously, it went way, way, way beyond that. But this is an early on heat map of the virus, just the number of infections that were reported and the density of the infections at that time. And obviously, it got way, way, way worse as time went on. Absolutely. One of the complaints I heard from people was that or one of the things that I heard from people was that it's just a cold. This is just a cold. Might be for you. Absolutely might be for you. Now, when I got it, I was a team lead at Walmart. Actually, I think it was still a department manager at that time. I can't remember if I was a lead or I want to say it was a lead still at that time in 2020. I think it was already a lead by that point. But I knew that there was a bunch of older people that I worked with. So the second that I thought I had it, one, I distanced myself from everybody else, stayed as far away from everybody as I could, and I left. Got home. My mother-in-law, who has the little purple ribbon thing, lupus. She has external lupus. Wanted to come and give me a hug. She was over for our kid's birthday, which is December 12th. And I was like, you need to back up. And I could tell she was upset about it, but she's immunocompromised. Her immune system is shot. And the first thing I could think of was, what if I got her infected with this? I don't want to kill her. That's terrible. There's old people that I work with that I knew their immune systems are going to be naturally compromised, but that's just a reduction in how well it works. However, that's very different from being completely immune compromised. Yeah. I mean, a lot of things are actually very closely, but I mean, you look at the Spanish flu. That is a flu, and it killed millions. So, one of the things that we completely don't think about the flu is that the flu kills people every year, like a lot of people every year. It's kind of crazy that still happens. But it's true. It absolutely does happen. Let's see. Yeah, I had enlarged that. Can I actually just throw another browser window in here? I'm going to call it a research window. And we're going to open it to Google. Can I use it if I do it that way? Still playing with this stuff. No, I can't use it if I do it that way. That sucks. I would like to have done it that way. Let's see. We'll just do it this way. Flu deaths annually. So every year in the United States, seasonal influenza or flu kills more than 36,000 people and hospitalizes 200,000 more. And that's just in the U.S., where we have a pretty decent healthcare system. If you go worldwide, you're talking about a quarter to a little over 500,000 deaths. That seems like a pretty big gap there. Annually. I don't remember what buttons I'm clicking on. People be messaging me while I'm live, like they can't see I'm live. But yeah, I mean, 300,000 to a little over, 500,000 deaths. That's a pretty big gap. But of course, you're talking about what countries maybe don't fully report, and so they're having to do estimates within those countries, of course. Kind of like some other things that we've been talking about, right? So yeah, that's just the flu. That's just the common flu. That yeah, it mutates constantly, but it hasn't become something like something insane that's going to make you bleed from your ears and such. But yeah, the flu can be absolutely just as deadly as anything else. It's one of those things that people don't seem to fully understand, that one of the reasons that we do take the flu vaccine isn't just to help prevent the flu in ourselves. It's to help other people not get the flu when we would potentially have been infected by it. right? One of the things I do hear about vaccines that people argue about is that when they take them, sometimes they get sick for a little while. Yeah, that can happen. It depends on what kind of vaccine you're getting, how that might work out. Your body's always going to have some reaction to a vaccine. Now, you might get just like warm or something for a while. You may be achy for a little while. That's going to be dependent on how your body's reacting to that individual vaccine. There's no way to know for sure exactly how your body's going to react to whatever the vaccine is. But there are different kinds of vaccines. There's live virus vaccines, and there's ones that just have the dead virus in it. There's reasons for both, and it depends on what kind of vaccine it is, how it's going to affect you, as it is. But yeah, you can still get sick from a completely dead virus vaccine. Most vaccines are not using live viruses, but there are some that might. But usually they'll let you know, especially if it's coming from your doctor and you're not just getting just like a random, shot clinic where they're just like going to give you a lot of shots, or if you're going into the military where they're like, we got 14 shots on the lineup for you. We're going to put 7 in one arm and 7 in the other arm, and you're just like, oh, well, that's going to be terrible. Believe it or not, if you're, for those who don't know, in the military, you don't really get a say on the shots. And no, that's not a terrible thing whatsoever. The amount of shots you get usually depends on where you're going to be deployed or stationed, and where you're coming from culturally, any shots that you might be missing. When you first get to boot camp, you're getting slung in with a bunch of people from all around the country who have had exposures to all sorts of things that you have not been exposed to. And so in the beginning of boot camp, a lot of people do get sick. But they give us all a lot of vaccines to help prevent it from being super bad and getting us prepared to be, interacting with all those different viruses and bacteria and whatnot that we weren't introduced to just because where we live regionally. That's why, like, I went to New Orleans for my duty station. It's a port town, international port, so they had to give us more vaccines and such when we got there. And I think that they gave us more hepatitis ones just because it's a port town and a lot of military sleep around. I was not one of those people, but I would be a complete liar if I said most of the guys I'm based didn't take every advantage to sleep with anything and everything they could. So yeah, the more vaccines, the merrier in those situations. It keeps your military healthy enough to operate despite how completely irresponsible they can be. So yeah, it's good that they get the vaccines whether or not they want them. You don't get a choice, and you shouldn't have a choice when you're in the military, because you don't need your entire unit out there trying to do operations, and some, idiot got the flu or something nasty and they brought it in, and now everybody's sick when you're trying to fight off whatever enemy is out there. Terrible reason for, bunch of people to die is because somebody brought in a disease. Make sense? I hope so. If it doesn't make sense to you, you're not thinking hard enough about it. Let's see. I'm trying to think of all the different things. Now there's this thing about vaccines giving people autism, giving children autism, I believe it is. I don't think they have said anything about giving adults autism, because that would be late stage. As far as I'm aware, the studies are revolving around it have been, for the most part, debunked. They didn't have enough people in the studies. They were really looking at very specific situations. They kind of cherry picked their data sources, going, well, these people all have autism. They all had vaccines. We're going to do our study this way. Well, that doesn't take into account, like, one of the points I make consistently is, well, what about the other 99.9% of the population that doesn't have these more serious autistic side effects? Yeah, I did for a little while. It's kind of boring though. Like, I like to focus more on my game. I can't game and try to like do commentary. I watch other guys do it, and I I'm really impressed with how they do it. Um, I actually use some of them to go to sleep too because it's kind of peaceful, depending on who you're watching and whatnot. But I can't, man. Like when I'm gaming, I just lose my my focus, especially now. One of the things that I've talked about is since having long COVID as bad as I have, is that I will be mid game in any game. I started playing Call of Duty Black Ops a couple weeks ago, and I would be mid combat and forgetting what the hell I was doing in combat. I'm like, what the hell? How am I legitimately like completely like resetting cognitively while I'm actually in this like action packed sequence of events? It's really really weird. It's one of the things that prevents me from being able to just go back to work is you can't really have brain fog and confusion like that constantly when you're doing work. On top of all the physical issues. But yeah, that's not helpful. Hello. What do we got for mail today? Well, all right. Help knock it out. That makes sense. Could be. But then, where did I get it? Mandy just got home. Uh, she and Nova went to the doctor to see what Nova's got. Nova had tested really pale a couple days ago for COVID, but she still got a nasty cough. I think she's either just got a little bit of phlegm still built up. I know I do. But that Dayquil, NyQuil stuff, premium. It really, really works well. The only downside for me is that the taste, that mentholatum flavor in your mouth. Like there's not enough good. There's not enough of anything to have flavor to really knock that out. But it's worth it. It really helped me breathe better and helped me recover faster. So I'll take that any day of the week. But one of the things that I was talking about the autism being derived. That those studies have been debunked for the most part. There's no way to say with that there isn't a slim chance that your child's gonna be mildly autistic, but there are, of course, there's so many different forms of autism. Going back looking at definitions in different forms of autism, there's every chance that basically I'm a highly functional autistic. I bang my head on walls. I bang my head on desks. I hit my head in desks. For those of you who never had desks like this back in the day, we had those big desks with the wooden top that went over a kind of like a pelican's beak. So you put all your books and stuff inside there. And when I was overloaded, I would just open it up, stick my head in there, and close the desk over the top of my head and hide in there. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of autistic things going on. A lot of therapy in the military helped me become more functional. Do I still get overloaded at times? Absolutely. But I think I handle things way better than I used to. But Uncle Sam's Misguided Children will definitely help anybody learn how to navigate themselves through things that are very uncomfortable and very difficult to deal with. Vaccines cause potential death. Yes, absolutely can. Only an idiot would deny that. Any medicine can have that kind of reaction. It can be like an allergic reaction. Most doctors, when they're giving you a shot, will ask you if you have allergies to some of the things that they're going to list when they ask that question. When they give you these shots, if your doctor is not asking you if you have allergies when you're getting a shot or a medication, Um, it's usually because one, they've already asked you what allergies you have. Um, when you first go in, they're always going to ask you if you have any drug allergies or any other allergies. And it's important to let them know anything you might be allergic to. Like I constantly have to, like, yeah, I'm allergic to mango. Now, do they make drugs with mango in it? Not that I'm aware of. Do I think they're going to be like, hey, you have a pretty good cough, have a mango? No, I don't think that's going to happen. But, you know, I like that one, Matt. But yeah, you need to let your doctors know and everything if you have any allergies when you first go in. But of course, when they're going to give you a shot too, they should still be asking if they don't see it on that list or if they're not referencing that list. They should be asking you before they give you those shots. Or if you go to like a pharmacy or something to get a shot. Walmart, I know, offers shots out in front of its pharmacy. Walgreens, the countless pharmacies do that. They should be asking you about any of those things as well. And there's always a chance that you don't know that you're allergic to something because you just have never encountered it in your life. So, that shot may be your first exposure to it. New medication may be your first exposure to it, and you may experience an allergic reaction that was unexpected in that situation. Now that happens absolutely all the friggin' time. It happens. It's just the math. It's the odds are it's going to inevitably happen to somebody. It's an unfortunate thing. It's an unforeseeable thing that's always a risk. That same risk is presented any single time you try in a new food, a new fruit, a new drink. Ingest anything that you've never ingested before. It could be an alcohol that's got a fruit additive to it or a nut additive to it. It could be anything. So anytime you take anything new into your system that you've never taken before and you don't know all the ingredients that are in there, or you've never experienced some of the ingredients that are in there, you still have that potential. Only in belts? You done it wrong. That I'm guessing that reaction happens usually after you've done something that you were getting yelled at for, huh? But yeah, I mean, finding out you're allergic to something sucks. The way I found out I was allergic to mangoes was I was in my 30s, and I was trying to get my kids to try new fruits, and I told them that I would try it first before they tried anything. So we got them to try star fruit and dragon fruit and all kinds of different fruits. And we got the mango, and I took a little piece of mango and I was eating that, and my face, my mouth, my lips, my tongue started swelling up, and it was all tingling and crazy. And I was like, but this isn't normal. I wonder if there's a chemical that they treated the nickel with to make it shinier. That's probably what you're reacting to if normal nickel isn't bothering you. That would be my guess, is that they're treating either the belt or the leather around the nickel with something. I would look into that. I'm curious. But yeah, I mean, yes, vaccines can potentially have allergic reactions that can lead up to death. And it is unfortunate. That's why you can take allergy tests. There are allergy tests that you can have done at doctors, and they'll test you for a whole slew of different things that are very common allergies. I want to say it's like 30 or something like that, 30 or more different things that are common that they'll test you for. Will that cover everything that's going to be in any vaccine? Some, but not all. So there's always that risk. Yes. But like I said, there's always that risk with anything that you're going to try that's new. So it's not like an inherent thing to vaccines. Is it worth the risk? That is a personal thing. But I would say that risk is no greater in a vaccine than it is when you try anything that's new that you haven't tried before, that has elements that you haven't tried before. Elements not in the periodic table, but elements in just different things that get put into it that you haven't ingested before. Um, like my buddy Matt here is saying that he's allergic to nickel, but only on the belts, um, which suggests that there's an additive that they're using in the clothing manufacturing of the belt. Might be something that they're doing to treat the leather, and that chemical residue is maybe still on the nickel, and maybe there's a way to polish that off of it and not get a reaction from that. It's hard to say without knowing what they're doing. Maybe there's a maybe it's like a nickel finish on top of something, and the way that they're using or adhering that nickel to whatever the metal that they're putting on top of. Um, there's so many different ways that could be, but if normal nickel isn't bothering them, then I would say that there's probably something else in that, which is kind of actually scary because without knowing exactly what that difference is and why it's affecting you that way, you don't know how you're going to possibly encounter that in other situations either. So then it becomes a bigger question of like, what else, somewhere else could you possibly run into whatever it is that's causing that issue? But yeah, I mean, you could absolutely it could just be nickel and other things that say that they're nickel. Like, are nickels actually made of nickel anymore? Let's see, composition of the U.S. nickel. It's mostly copper and 25% nickel, an alloy known as Cooper nickel. So it's not like the core of it is one and it's like an outer layer or anything like that. It's actually mostly copper and nickel all in one thing, and the nickel's what's giving it the color. So that might be why like a normal nickel wouldn't bother you, but if they're using just pure nickel for the belt, maybe that's why the belt is bothering you. No way to know. No way to know without some tests. We're gonna rub nickels all over you. Oh, but yeah, I mean, it is really important. Vaccines. The reason vaccines are so much better is because one, you can distribute them much quicker to a much broader number of people, knowing that they will then be resistant to the infection. Now, does a vaccine mean that you will not get infected, period? No. What I mean is the virus you can still come into contact with the virus. It can still try to infect your body. It just means that your body will much quicker recognize the virus, and it will much more swiftly fight it off before the virus can become as bad as it would be normally. So you might get like a sniffle for a day, or a little tickle in the back of your throat for a day, and then it's gone. I'm like, oh, I wonder what that was. Could have been something fairly serious, but you already were vaccinated. Cool. That's great. But at the same time, what it does is most of the time those symptoms won't even show up until after you've already been contagious to other people. Now, being vaccinated will reduce that so that you will not be necessarily contagious to other people, one, for as long or at all, potentially. So the more and more people that have those vaccines, the greater the reduction in all of that. And then, of course, if they are also vaccinated, all good, right? So, things to think about. Vaccines create a greater, healthier society, all in all. It has people that don't, we don't have people calling into work all the time. Oh yeah, that's very true, Matt. If it was a really old belt, yeah, any kind of allergy warning that it may have had on there somewhere is definitely gone by that point. Of course, there are allergic reactions to clothes that you first buy in the store. People do have those, because they wash them or treat them with whatever they use in the factory. And then, of course, other people do try them on. So any perfumes or anything that they may have had, any deodorants that they may have had that may have wiped onto it a little bit. Wash your clothes. When you first buy clothes, wash your clothes before you wear them. Always a safe thing to do. Uh, you don't know who's been in those pants. You don't know who's been in that shirt. Wash them. Um, but yeah, the more people who are vaccinated, the better. You're just gonna have a healthier overall society. You're gonna have less people missing work. They're gonna be able to be more productive. There's going to be less potential for viruses to propagate and therefore mutate and take on new character traits, and then reinfect people who already had the virus, but now it's a new mutation. Um, and their body doesn't recognize this new mutation as the old virus and has to do the whole rigmarole all over again. So it is important that, we consider all of that when we're doing this. Now, am I going to say it's not your choice? No, it's absolutely your choice to do things. But of course, there is a right and a wrong thing to do in these circumstances. It's what is the term? I want to say social obligation, social obligation, social was it respect or something like that? But basically, when you live in a societal obligation, that's what it is. When you live in a society where you're dealing with a bunch of other people every day, you're living within these groups and paradigms, you have certain laws and certain things that you're obligated to agree to and act to be socially conscious of others and to be respectful and mindful of them. And so far, and they are, of course, obligated to meet those same standards to be respectful and mindful of you. The reason that we do this is that everybody can be healthy, wealthy, and wise every single day and live their life and pursue their life, liberty, and happiness, to pursue their dreams, because it's their freedom to do so. But anytime you're in any society, while you have complete freedoms, you don't. And what I mean by that is that you have to give up a small number of freedoms, very, very minuscule number of freedoms. And otherwise you'd have anarchy, which we don't have. Any system of governance will never have complete anarchy because it's not a good way to run any kind of society. But we do this because we give up that little bit of freedom to have all of the rest of those freedoms. To have a society where we can be walking along the street and we know that, Matt is not going to just show up over here with a gun and just take us out because fuck you today. That's why. It's important that we acknowledge that the reason that we have some of these freedoms or why we give up some of those freedoms is because it ensures a safer society. It ensures a healthier society. It ensures a productive society, and it gives us a lot of civil liberties, or not a lot of civil liberties, civil programs, like the fire and rescue, your medical things, your police departments, your public schools. All of this is stuff that's not guaranteed to you necessarily unless your government gives it to you. And to give that to you, you give up small little things and taxations, things like that. Agreeing to adhere to laws. Now, I know somebody out there is probably like, I didn't agree to adhere to, these laws. You did when you decided you wanted to stay out of prison. Easiest way to put that. It just is what it is. If you don't want to land in the clink, you're going to have to just agree to disagree with some of the laws some days. But those laws are also what's keeping our society productive. It's what's keeping our society able to progress and do what it is that we do. Now, we're not going to be happy with every single time, every instance of freedom that we give up. No. But it is something that's super, super important in any society, any culture, to have a better culture. I can't help it. I'm just looking at the way this is all laid out and going, I could make this look nicer, cleaner. It's so hard because my screen is actually 4K, but this is only a 1080 box. Just trying to lane everything in a way that makes sense. Maybe I'll have to throw a little ticker on the bottom and adjust the box here, but we'll slowly get there. And maybe I'll start doing some in 4K if I can figure out where I can stream it that way. Or if I pay whatever money it is to do that. Oh, so it was the detergent you were allergic to and not the belt? Yeah, that's actually a lot more common than people think. Some of the most common allergenics outside of like food allergies are going to be found in your detergents and in like your deodorants, shampoos, things of that nature. Because it has more of your harsher chemicals in there. I went for years. I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago. I had tried a new deodorant from, I can't remember if it was an Old Spice one of those interesting ones where they got like all the Kraken and all that stuff. I can't remember which one it was that I tried, and I suddenly like got like massive rashes all along, like from like my elbow all the way down like the side of my belly. It was crazy, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" And the only thing I had changed was my deodorant. So I stopped using it, and it went away. I was like, okay, well, that's what it was. It was awful while it lasted, and it took me a little while to realize what it was. But yeah, anytime you switch deodorants, anytime you switch shampoos, detergents, um, any kind of chemical that you use for like cleaning, anything like that, always be aware. Keep in mind that even for your family, if you got kids, if you got a girlfriend, spouse, whatever the case may be, always pay attention to if they're developing any kind of reactions. When they're coming into contact with it, even if it's just something that they might be smelling, if it's causing them breathing issues, pay attention to all of that, because that could allude to much more serious stuff coming down the line. It's one thing to just have like a passive causal reaction to it, but the belt was a different instance. So you were using the same detergent you had previously used, and then used threw the belt into the laundry, and is that what it was? Yeah. Excuse the sniffles. Nose is starting to get a little trickly. All right, I'm only gonna go for a little bit longer here because I've still got some emails I got to do, taking care of some business for the folks in my town. Um, for those who don't know, I haven't gotten the paperwork yet. I'm going to be running down there now that I'm feeling better and hopefully no longer contagious. I shouldn't be, given that most of the symptoms have died off. And they say that I should be symptom free now. So hopefully Thursday or Friday, I'll be running down to the district office for the school district in town here, and I will be getting the documents filled out for running for the school district board, the school board for the city of Anago, or the school district of Anago, as it were. And that will be the spring election. There will be 3 seats going up. I know there's Miss Abby Maddock, who's also going to be running this year. Seems like a good kid. I don't know what her, I don't want to say kid. I don't know how old Miss Abby is. I've only gotten to speak with her for a little bit online, and she seemed like a pretty good person. And I know a lot of people right now are just, and they have been in Anago, they've been very unhappy with the school district and a lot of the ways that they've been doing things and handling things. So I will be running for that board, in addition to the county board that I'm already on. You can be on both. There's nothing stopping you. There's no conflict of interest there. They're 2 different entities. They do not deal with one another as far as anything like that goes. So that'll actually be 100% fine. I looked into the state and the county laws. I didn't see any rules or any laws that would prevent that. No ordinances, nothing like that. So I will be going for that coming up. Um, Anybody who knows me knows I have a long history of um, putting a lot of work and effort into one, education just in general, just trying to get people to understand things and understand what a value education is. Um, I would think my some of my school teachers would argue maybe that I didn't care for education as much as maybe I should have. I would disagree though. Obviously, if I could pass all of your tests without any notes, I definitely was well educated. You guys did a fantastic job educating me. Maybe just not in the same way that you traditionally would have thought somebody needed to be educated. Um, that's one of the things that I don't agree with the American school system, which is the getting scored on your homework or like taking it home and doing it there when you could have done it in class and had it done in a heartbeat, having to show work, things like that. I've always been naturally gifted, and I see a lot of that as a waste of my time. It just is what it is. But I don't. I still think education is very important. I know that not every person needs the same avenues, needs to go the same directions to acquire the same kind of education. Obviously, everybody learns in their own ways. They're very different objectives and different ways that everybody's going to attain that knowledge and retain that knowledge. I think the most important thing for me is the retention of knowledge. I don't care if somebody can copy something off of a notebook, 3 days after they wrote it into the notebook. To me, that's not educated, but it is what it is. We're doing standardized testing. We need results, right? I think it would be much more rewarding, however, if we can find ways to encourage kids to really understand the information, really comprehend the information, and retain the information for a longer period of time, insofar as they're successful later on in their life. But that's just me. I think more important than us getting good accolades or recognition for a number of students getting results on a testing model would be that I think the real accolades for any district would be the number of success stories that we see 5-10 years down the road. That's just where I stand, because I feel like the more kids that are successful, the more that feel like their success was born by the people within that community, that they'll hopefully want to raise their kids in that community and give them the same opportunities for success and advantages. And they'll want to raise people here. They'll want to, come back here with their plans to build greater, build on their dreams. Maybe they start business, whatever the case may be. Maybe they'll want to do it from a smaller town like Antigo and make it a little bit better and give back to the community that helped, get them to where they're at. But that's I guess that's my 2 cents. I think education is a way to catapult somebody, and a way to give them the opportunities and give them the ability to critically think. And I think right now, I think we can all agree that America's in a position where critical thinking is not something that everybody has full access to, and does not implement it to their fullest capability. I think if everybody could implement critical thinking, if they understood how to, we're talking about all the time, you see, do your own research, don't trust mass media, but then they trust like podcasts from, Joe Schmo. We need to help people understand what information is valid, how to understand how to vet and validate information, how to do their own research in a way that's effective, and not to just go, well, it comes from this source, so it must have a political affiliation and blah blah blah. No, any source can have good information, sometimes much to our own chagrin, but we need to be able to give children the opportunity to understand things in their own way and to be able to critically think for themselves. They need to be able to come out of a high school environment with a lot more preparation to them, and we need to be doing it right ethically, and for the safety and sanctity of our children. Um, Now, for all the kids that attend our schools and do feel that they get that, that's fantastic. But let's face it, even in the worst of times, you're still going to have a number of kids who are going to feel that way. Um, but we also have another responsibility, not just to the children, but to the community. And that means that we are responsible to the community insofar as being transparent and public with everything. Um, I practice that right now as a county board member, trying to be as completely transparent and as forward as possible, and representing a lot of things, bringing information out to people, trying to get the facts for people. And I'm sure that not everybody's probably the biggest fan of me doing so, and I know it's going to, that there are times when there's static, shall we say, because of it. But at the same time, if we are not addressing our constituents, if we're not informing our constituents, if we're not trying to get information for our constituents that they're asking for, we're not doing our job. We're just saying, shh, let daddy do his thing and just trust us. Well, I got to be honest with you. I've lived here for almost somewhere around like 17 years now. And the deeper I get into a lot of the town, the more I see that daddy hasn't done a good job. The people who have been running the town have been kind of taking a lot of liberties into their own hands. They've got their own ideas. They've got their own desires. They've got their own perspectives. And I'm not saying that a lot of things have been done for any kind of like dubious reason. I don't think, I genuinely think that most decisions are made with somebody thinking that these are going to be the best decisions that they can possibly make for the town. They're trying to do the right thing. Unfortunately, when that's made with a lot of personal bias and a lot less information than necessarily you should have, or misinformation, at times, unfortunately, that can go in the wrong way. Anytime you're trying to obfuscate the information that you have, prevent people from getting that information in the public space, that's not a good look. The public should be able to have that information, and yeah, obviously they can put in freedom of information requests and try to get that paperwork that way. But why should they have to if you have that information? If you can readily get that information and just give it to them, why should people have to go through a paper process and be delayed? There's no good reason to intentionally delay anything or to withhold anything without a process. Not if you're being completely honest. So that's how my feeling is. So I will be running that in spring for the school board, one of the 3 seats. So hopefully, you'll consider me. With that, I'm going to end today's stream. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Matt and Jeff. I may go back to gaming on occasion on Twitch streaming, and I will let people know if I do decide to do that. I'll probably wait for a while before I do that, though. I'm still recovering a little bit. Y'all have a good one. Merry Christmas. Stay safe out there.